This is Bill Sang, the author of the Giganotus Rex series. You can find links to purchase the Giganotus Rex books at williamhsang.com, and Sang is Seng, or you can go to amazon.com. You can find books there. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Enjoy the show. The Wrath of Giganotus Rex by Bill Sang. Chapter 6, Secret Friend. I was not quite finished with my research yet. Mind you, I was consulting children's books for my information on dinosaurs. Something told me that no book I could have consulted would have brought me completely trustworthy research. These books claimed that dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago and that nobody had ever seen one. But then they detailed with certainty everything from what they ate to what shows they watched on Saturday mornings. I managed to gather some information that I believed would be irrefutable. Anybody that would look at my report would conclude I was correct without much scrutiny. That was why I was certain that George was not going to be too happy with me. He was insistent that this was a mutated lizard. He had no proof, but he believed it in his heart. At this point, the least of his reasons for holding to this was pride. No one likes to be wrong, but he would never admit he was wrong. He would never concede, even if I provided irrefutable proof. He would not admit his folly. It would be good to find a way to appease him. I decided to check out some books on reptiles. This would look good to George, but also provide some valuable insight. The element I felt that the dinosaur books lacked was the reality that these were not some far-off mythical creatures, but they were full-blooded reptiles. Instead of observing birds and mammals to tell us how dinosaurs behaved, observing other reptiles seemed more rational. If no one had ever seen one of these things, it would be better to start with what is known about similar creatures. I checked my books out and walked out the door. I was on the sidewalk when I heard a familiar voice. "Bill, Bill, Bill," called out the voice. "You never cease to amaze me, you know." "Well, well, well," I said, echoing his speech pattern and tone. "If it isn't Mr. Murakoshi Honda. What's up, my friend?" Remember how I said I have some insiders gathering information for me? Murakoshi is that guy. He works for the Federal Intelligence Agency. Most agents would be caught for divulging the type of information Murakoshi was giving away. But this man was full-blooded ninja. And I almost mean this in the most literal of ways. His heritage dates all the way back to ancient Japan. I don't know what generation he is, but he is certainly a piece of work. He smiled and shook my hand. "If I told you what I was up to, you know I would have to kill you, right?" I responded, "I would like to see you try." He grew a little quieter. "I don't think I would have to." He paused for a moment before continuing. He had to make sure that the coast was clear. "First off, we need to be very careful. You have no idea how close you were to dying the other day." I was pretty sure I knew how close my encounter with death was. "You don't say." "Between being blown up by artillery fire and being trampled by a giant lizard." "Dinosaur," he snapped back. "Right," I rebounded. "Dinosaur. I think I am well aware. Let me just say that you should be a little more cautious before you rush into a situation like the one you were in." He hinted through his tone that he couldn't tell me everything he knew. I didn't fully understand, so I blurted back, "How could I have known I was going to arrive at the village the day a giant lizard—" "Dinosaur," he snapped back. "Of course, Dinosaur was going to make his first appearance in 65 million years. I know I sounded indignant, but I wasn't sure what he was getting at. And I couldn't have known something was going to happen like that. Who could have? "It was not his first appearance," was his pointed reply. "Excuse me?" I asked as I wrestled with confusion. "It was not his first appearance." He looked around again. "Look, I cautioned you once, but I think you are all clear if you want to go back to the village. Thus far, you are on the right track. Go back to the village. Talk to some of the people. Trust no one from Midland." "Does that include you?" I turned to look over my shoulder, and by the time I looked back, he was gone. I continued walking. I thought about the things Murakoshi was talking about. Was I indeed closer to death than what I realized? I was pretty well aware that an encounter with an animal that size was threatening enough in itself. I passed by an alley and heard footsteps. I looked over to see who was there. I saw no one. "Is that you?" I couldn't say Murikoshi's name because he could get in big trouble if I mentioned him to the wrong person. I walked toward the alley and through its narrow walkway. "Is there a reason you are following me?" I asked. No response. I looked down the alley for another minute and saw nothing. I turned around and started to walk. I heard something behind me rustle around for a split second. I turned around to see a dark figure sneak around the corner. I did not care to find out who it was at this point. I gingerly walked away, looking behind me as I went. This was starting to get creepy. I had no clue as to what was happening. Murikoshi knew something I did not. I needed more information, and it looked like the only way I was going to get it was to go back to Orwell.